Hi, I'm Kevin Trudeau. In the next few minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you a way to make some tremendous additional income. If you're watching right now and you have an interest in earning an extra $200 or $300 a month part-time, or an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month part-time, or even $10,000 or $20,000 a month part-time, you may have an interest in what I'm going to show you.
Meet Kevin Trudeau, a convicted felon who's cheated consumers out of over $37 million through sales of his many bogus products. He's been running one scam or another since the 1980s, from credit card fraud to fake medical cures, even stealing his mother's social security number to help carry out certain schemes. Though Kevin's crimes have landed him in jail multiple times, he maintains a devoted following that believes it's all a conspiracy by the elites to keep him down. So what circumstances does it take to create a man like Kevin Trudeau? And how does he continue to find new marks to swindle even today? Kevin Trudeau was born in 1963 and grew up in the middle-class home of Mary and Robert Trudeau. Raised in Lynn, Massachusetts, he described himself as a fat kid who wore glasses and was into magic tricks. As a youth, Kevin joined the Boy Scouts, served as an altar boy, and was voted most likely to succeed by his high school classmates. Yet in an interview with Business Insider, Kevin admitted he didn't like talking about his upbringing that much, and was quoted as saying, "Everyone has issues." At the age of 15, he met his mentor, Fred Van Loo, a salesman who dealt in appetite control mugs and crystals. Kevin was fascinated by multi-level marketing companies and attended various Amway meetings to learn how to unlock his own entrepreneurial potential. He began taking out mail-order ads in the back of the National Enquirer, offering advice and other services to those who replied. Shockingly, he managed to turn a neat little profit off of these. By his own recollection, as much as $1 million before he'd turn 18. Despite his intellect and ambition, he remembered being told by a school guidance counselor that he was, quote, a loser and always going to be a loser. Rather than tearing him down, these insults only fueled his drive to prove everyone wrong. Kevin claims that after finding success later in life, he dined at an expensive restaurant only to have that same guidance counselor serve as his parking valet. Business Insider believed that much of Kevin's desire to succeed stemmed from his feelings of inadequacy, which began to manifest after a cousin unexpectedly told him that he was adopted. His mother began noticing changes in his demeanor immediately, telling the Boston Herald, quote, "I probably waited too long to tell him." Kevin landed a job at a used car dealership after high school, making a fortune by convincing naive shoppers to sign on to loans which were not in their best interests. His mentor told Business Insider, quote, "Was it the best advice? No. Was he doing it to get you the best deal? Hell no. He was in it for profit and money. He knew most people are idiots." Following his stint as a used car salesman, Kevin moved to Chicago in the mid-80s. Here he dabbled in hosting seminars on improving one's memory, touting himself as Mr. Mega Memory. Working for a company called Memory Masters Institute, Kevin quickly rose through the ranks to become its highest-earning salesman aside from the founder. It's believed he commanded a six-figure salary around this time. He was said to have become a voracious reader of self-help books, as part of a mission to better understand and exploit human psychology. Before long, however, Kevin's penchant for finding shortcuts to success led to what would be his first of many brushes with the law. Beginning in 1984, Kevin embarked on a spree of credit card fraud over a course of 6 years. It was believed he had scammed American Express out of over $120,000 using 5 phony credit card numbers taken out under false names. Additionally, Kevin used multiple social security numbers to secure another 6 credit cards from Citibank, the Bank of America, and other financial institutions. He took them out in the names of people who had signed up for his memory-building seminars. A judge later alleged that one of these social security numbers belonged to his own mother. In 1988, Kevin found himself in hot water when he attempted to withdraw $80,000 from a Boston bank account using bad checks. Kevin claimed the checks bounced because the money within had been embezzled by his secretary. According to prosecutors, he had lied to the bank about being a doctor, though Kevin says this was a misunderstanding of a joke he made about being a, quote, doctor in memory. He pled guilty to 7 counts of larceny and served 10 days of a 21-day prison sentence in October 1990. In 1991, Kevin was back in court when his credit card fraud schemes had been discovered and was forced to defend himself before a grand jury. Kevin stated that he had been behind on paying bills, thus tanking his credit rating. He claimed he had no choice but to pull off the fraud in order to obtain further credit. As part of his defense, Kevin's lawyer had him undergo a psychiatric evaluation which claimed his behavior was a product of struggling to accept the fact that he was adopted. The psychiatrist's belief was that his severe feelings of inadequacy contributed to a personality disorder that caused him to make poor decisions if it meant he could profit financially. The psychiatrist recommended probation rather than prison time. The court disagreed, and Kevin saw no choice but to plead guilty. He was sent to federal prison for 2 years. Kevin believed that both the prosecutor and American Express had it out for him and nailed him on whatever they could. He later told Business Insider that this was likely because he had been planning on running for office, explaining to the website, quote, "I think a group of people had an interest in making sure I wasn't a viable candidate." Behind bars, Kevin came up with clever schemes, like using his birth mother's Jewish heritage to demand kosher meals. Since the prison was understaffed, Kevin was put in charge of making his own menu, which he took full advantage of, adding foods like lobster, which of course isn't kosher. Kevin also made friends with a fellow inmate named Jules Live, a convicted drug dealer with whom he often talked business. When the pair were released in 1993, they began marketing health products through infomercials and radio advertisements for a multi-level marketing company called Nutrition for Life. Around the same time, Kevin started his own media company, Trudeau Media Marketing Group. Within 3 years, Kevin had tripled Nutrition for Life's sales and became its top seller. But even with all the success, Kevin's aggressive tactics left his bosses uneasy. Company president David Bertrand believed Kevin's big promises about Nutrition for Life's rewards for new hires could spell trouble for them down the line. And he was right to be concerned. At one point, the company had to fund a cruise for thousands of people to make good on one of Kevin's guarantees. His unorthodox practices soon caught the attention of Illinois Attorney General Jim Ryan, who sued him and Jules Live in 1996 for running a pyramid scheme. Kevin's recruitment tactics at Nutrition for Life were the main focus of the lawsuit.
Now, how do you make money as an executive? Well, again, there's a lot of ways you can market this program. I'm just going to touch on a few of them. One of the easiest ways is to share this program with other people. Now, how do you do that? Well, we have a tape here called Payphones, Doorknobs, and Shopping Carts. And on the other side it says, they laughed when I used this tape to make money, but when they saw the results, they begged to get in. This is a very powerful tape. All you have to do, as an example, is pass this tape out to people. The more of these tapes you pass out, the more people are going to listen to it. And the more people that listen to it, the more people are going to want to get in our program.
The AG claimed they were making money from signing on new sales reps instead of actually selling products. He also took issue with the fact that Kevin hadn't been truthful to recruits about his past felony charges and the fact that he had once declared bankruptcy. Left with no choice, the men settled with Illinois and 7 other state governments for $185,000. Kevin and Jules parted ways soon after. Rather than being humbled by the experience, Kevin only grew sneakier. He now operated under the infomercial production companies Mega Systems International and True Vantage International. Through these, he sold products and services such as Master Size How to Protect Yourself training tapes, a so-called hair farming system that would cure baldness, and a treatment program that claimed to eliminate any addiction in 60 seconds 100% of the time. The latter was devised by a man named Roger Callahan, and supposedly worked by having users tap on the body's pressure points to redirect a natural energy called ki as a means of fighting off physical urges. Overall, Kevin claims to have put out over 300 infomercials for as many products of dubious quality. By 1998, Kevin found himself under scrutiny by the Federal Trade Commission, who had received complaints that 6 of his infomercials had made misleading or outright false claims. One of the offending programs sold users on a speed reading manual backed by Guinness World Record holder Howard Berg.
Howard Berg, the world's fastest reader in the Guinness Book of Records, demonstrates his mega reading technique on national TV.
And you read this. You read this. Anybody who gets this course from yours can do what you just did.
You already have the ability. I'm just showing you how to release it.
FTC documents claimed that Kevin structured his infomercials to appear like episodes of talk shows to lower the guard of viewers. He was made to pay out $500,000 to any customers who felt they had been duped, and to add a disclaimer to the start of his program stating that they were paid advertisements. He was also told to refrain from making any more false claims about the products he peddled, and was required to provide scientific proof on TV when warranted. In 2003, the FTC filed a complaint in Illinois against Kevin's companies for pushing a number of alternative medicines like coral calcium supplements, which he said could cure lupus and heart disease. Except, it is not proven to combat those particular illnesses. In fact, coral calcium tends to have higher amounts of lead and mercury contamination, and oversupplementing on it is hard on the kidneys. Kevin had teamed up with one of the biggest promoters of coral calcium, Robert Barefoot, who said that people in cultures with a high calcium intake, quote, don't even have children until they're in their 70s when they're mature enough to handle kids. Though often introduced as Dr. Robert Barefoot, Quackwatch determined that the man was neither a medical doctor nor did he have a PhD. Time also noted that coral calcium sold by Mr. Barefoot was priced 15 times higher than a comparable brand found at the drugstore. The FTC argued that Kevin's promotion of this product violated the provisions made against him back in 1998. He nevertheless continued selling such products on television, leading to the FTC seeking an injunction. Throughout 2003, Kevin had circulated a number of memos highlighting the type of workplace he fostered. Among these included his demands that employees study the dictionary, use the juicing machines installed in the offices, and consider reading up on Scientology. In particular, he pointed to the successes of John Travolta and Tom Cruise as evidence that Scientology works. Kevin would continue to be linked to Scientology over the coming years, although his connection to the church has never been explicitly confirmed. By 2004, the FTC had had enough of Kevin's chicanery and took matters back to the bench, where he was found in contempt of court for defying the 2003 injunction. They moved to ban him from promoting any health and wellness products on television, radio, and the internet. Kevin was also forced to pay out a $2 million settlement, and he would be on the hook for a further $20 million in fines if he continued to violate the injunction. In effect, this ruling was meant to keep him off the infomercial circuit permanently. There was, however, an important caveat: his First Amendment rights. Nothing could be done to prevent Kevin from making his wild claims in books or newsletters, and this was a loophole he made certain to exploit. In August 2004, Kevin self-published a book advocating his brand of alternative medicine called Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About. The title was an allusion to Kevin's belief that the government and pharmaceutical industry conspired to keep the public in the dark about natural cures for most diseases. Some of the questionable claims the book made were that overexposure to sunlight doesn't cause skin cancer, that AIDS was a hoax to sell medications, and that wearing the color white will cure depression. It seemed the book was written in retaliation against the government agencies which had given Kevin a financial spanking for his previous promotion of medical quackery on television. Natural Cures opens with a promise that all royalties will be used to, quote, help fund the mission of educating people about natural health care and exposing corporate and government corruption. Kevin then reluctantly includes a disclaimer telling readers to consult with professionals before taking any of the advice therein, and laments that only doctors can prescribe treatment in America. Next, Kevin lays bare his persecution complex, writing that the Food and Drug Administration is working to keep him down before likening himself to an underdog. The following chapters spout off increasingly conscientious claims mixed with selective truths, attacking modern medicine by highlighting archaic cures for illnesses. Kevin also argues that his lack of medical background makes him more open-minded about alternative treatments. In fact, he would later tell CBS, quote, I'm not a medical doctor, I state that in the book. That's why I'm qualified to talk about health. Because I'm not a drug pusher. I'm not a pharmaceutical rep. In particular, he touts that he hasn't been sick in over 25 years as proof that he's on the right path, and once claimed to be over 70 years old when he was only 43. At one point, Kevin hints that he worked as a secret agent for the government, explaining his knowledge of these hidden secrets. Rather than clearly listing natural cures from the start, he spends much of the book ranting about how the FDA and FTC are colluding against him. The book offers no citations nor an index, which Kevin claims would have made it too long. The cures he does mention are mostly common knowledge, like the benefits of drinking water and regular exercise. Kevin also recommends the documentary Super Size Me, which has faced criticism in recent years after it was revealed that the director gained most of his weight from excessive alcohol consumption. Throughout the book, Kevin constantly makes incorrect claims, such as that wild animals never lose their teeth or get cancer. He also contradicts himself by saying he's not offering medical advice before opening a chapter by saying, you can cure any disease. Towards the end, he recommends the works of L. Ron Hubbard and the Church of Scientology to learn more about stress relief. Kevin ultimately admits he couldn't include the natural cures promised in the book due to censorship, but that he offers them for a $10 monthly subscription to his website's newsletter. Reactions to natural cures by experts were understandingly scathing. Dr. Sidney Wolfe told ABC, quote, 10% of that is common sense and 90% is quackery. Dr. Dean Ornish explained to the New York Times how Kevin was able to appear reasonable to readers. Quote, there's enough truth in what he's saying that it gives him credibility with people who are looking for answers. But a lot of what he says is either nonsense or not proven through credible means. many readers agreed that the book was more about airing Kevin's personal grievances with the government rather than promoting helpful medical treatments. Despite this, the book went on to top bestsellers lists and created an army of rabid Kevin Trudeau fans who dismissed all criticism as attacks from corrupt institutions and the brainwashed masses. Feeling salty from the FTC's 2004 ruling, Kevin tried suing the agency the following year over claims that they had been misleading in their press releases covering the settlement. He complained that these had been detrimental to his $2 billion business. The FTC responded that their news release was completely truthful, and the courts agreed. Kevin's lawsuit was dismissed later that year, and his attempt to appeal the decision was similarly quashed. Salon reported that within a matter of months, Kevin's book had moved over 3 million copies. They believed that oversaturation of his infomercials was the reason for its success, rather than an organic word of mouth. An Alabama-based publishing house with a similar name to Kevin's company told Salon they'd received hundreds of angry phone calls from readers of Natural Cures over its unsubstantiated claims and paywalling of promised cures. One major critic of Kevin's book was the New York State Consumer Protection Board, which cautioned readers against what it labeled speculation. They pointed out that a so-called cure for cancer advertised in his infomercials was nowhere to be found in the book itself, another instance of him hiding the alternative treatments on his pay-to-access website. NBC reported that the Protection Board got involved after receiving over a dozen complaints from angry readers who felt they had been taken for a ride, with one man calling the book gobbledygook. CBS reported that Kevin sought an injunction against the Consumer Protection Board, claiming they tried to pull his infomercials off television. A U.S. District Court judge countered that no such restraining order had been filed. The chair for UPenn's Department of Medical Ethics noted this as an example of Kevin's tactic of portraying himself as a martyr against an authoritarian government to support the claims made in his book. Quote, "He's anticipated any backlash with his cuckoo conspiracy theory. He's built a firewall around himself." He went on to say that Kevin's main tactic was to fan the flames of distrust against the healthcare system to establish himself as an arbiter of truth. ABC's Nightline questioned Kevin about his claim of a natural cure for diabetes, which he said was backed by a study from the University of Calgary. When ABC contacted the university, they were told, quote, "We have established that there have been no human studies conducted at the University of Calgary in the past 20 years on herbal remedies for diabetes." Kevin promised to send the network these studies, but ABC never wound up receiving them. Additionally, the physician Kevin claimed had discovered this natural cure was found to have never even been affiliated with the University of Calgary, who ultimately sent Kevin a cease and desist letter over his false claims. By late 2006, Kevin had published an updated book called More Natural Cures Revealed, which promised to reveal the names of the brand name products he claimed were censored in the original. Yet again, readers were annoyed that the book contained more about Kevin's personal opinions about the drug industry than concrete cures for diseases. This updated version also saw Kevin claiming to have gotten his information from a secret society of millionaires, who he said once showed him the bodies of dead extraterrestrials stored at Area 51. Within a year, Kevin published 2 more books, The Weight Loss Cure They Don't Want You to Know About, and Debt Cures They Don't Want You to Know About. In Debt Cures, he suggested disputing unfavorable credit reports by claiming identity fraud. But The Weight Loss Cure sparked more controversy by promoting HCG, a hormone linked to harmful weight loss effects over 45 years prior. This led to more trouble with the FTC, which charged him with violating the 2004 court order that banned him from misrepresenting claims in future publications. The FTC argued, quote, "During the ads, Trudeau claims that the weight loss plan outlined in the book is easy to do, can be done at home, and ultimately allows readers to eat whatever they want. However, when consumers purchase the book, they find it describes a complex, grueling plan that requires severe dieting, daily injections of a prescription drug that consumers cannot easily get, and lifelong dietary restrictions." Judge Robert Gentleman, who had found Kevin in contempt of court, said the author, quote, "clearly misrepresents in his advertisements the difficulty of the diet described in his book, and by doing so, he has misled thousands of consumers." By mid-2008, Kevin found himself banned from appearing in infomercials for 3 years, and ordered to pay over $5 million in fines due to the false claims made in his weight loss guide. That November, Judge Gentleman slapped on an additional $32 million in fines, which was in line with how much Kevin had made through his misleading infomercials. Though Kevin challenged this, requests for a stay on the ruling were denied. Despite his legal troubles, in 2009, Kevin released a new 14-CD audio series called Your Wish is Your Command, where he touted the law of attraction. Popularized by Napoleon Hill's 1937 book Think and Grow Rich, This New Age teaching focuses on a concept called manifestation that proposes that the reframing of thoughts alone can make your wishes come true. In an infomercial promoting the series, Kevin claims to have been taken in by an organization he calls the Brotherhood that he met at a bowling alley as a teenager, who taught him the skills he needed to become a millionaire before he turned 18.
When I was 15 years old, I got exposed to an organization called the Brotherhood. And this group took me in and taught me how to use the law of attraction. And what that really is how to use your brain to act as a transmitter and receiver of frequency. And they taught me how to focus that to virtually attract into my life what I wanted. They told me that I could have, be, or do anything I wanted.
The Brotherhood was apparently composed of some of the richest and most influential people in the world, though Live Science pointed out that they clearly weren't able or willing to keep Kevin out of prison back in 1991. Kevin states that he had been sworn to secrecy by the Brotherhood, but that he had a change of heart and decided that their knowledge ought to be disseminated to the masses. For a fee, of course. Kevin claims to have organized a weekend workshop in the Swiss Alps where he taught the secrets of the Brotherhood for a fee of $10,000 per attendee. He boasted that every single person who had signed up for the seminar was happy with what they had learned, and that no one had asked for their money back even after 3 months.
If a guy is watching this right now and doesn't pick up the phone and get the Your Wish is Your Command program, they'll always be a loser.
In addition to his 14-disc series, Kevin used the infomercial to promote his recently created Global Information Network, a so-called multi-form foundation that he said had the backing of anonymous billionaires and celebrities who wanted to spread prosperity to the masses. Kevin appeared on Alex Jones's InfoWars a handful of times in 2009. Alex praised Kevin for his willingness to stand up to the American government despite the various legal battles he had found himself in. The two traded thoughts about various conspiracy theories involving secret cabals running the world, such as the Bilderbergs. During his second appearance, Kevin derided people who take vaccines as idiots.
People say to me, aren't you concerned that all these people are taking the vaccine, the swine flu vaccine? Aren't you concerned? I says, no, because I'm not getting it. And if somebody wants to be an idiot and go there and take the vaccine, you know what I tell them? Take a double dose just to be safe. You know, if you're that much of a moron, take a double dose.
Kevin Trudeau was found in contempt of court in February 2010 over sales of his weight loss book. Part of this was over his decision to ask his followers to email Judge Gentleman to express their support. It was reported that the federal judge's inbox was swamped with emails considered, quote, harassing, threatening, and interfering. This was considered an attack on the direct process of the court. Kevin was thus ordered to surrender his passport and put up $50,000 in bond money. The judge also warned him that he may face prison time over this latest stunt. In 2011, Kevin was ordered to pay the $37 million fine after his appeal was denied by the courts. His lawyers considered this a, quote, unwarranted government intrusion on the First Amendment right of free speech. Kevin complained that the $2 million bond demanded of him was too steep, although the appeals court countered that he wouldn't have to pay that money unless he put out another infomercial full of misinformation. Kevin claimed in 2012 that he couldn't pay the $37 million fine. The court's position, however, was that he was hiding money in offshore accounts and transferring assets to his 27-year-old Ukrainian wife while continuing to live luxuriously. In particular, Kevin was thought to have named her as the owner or executive of multiple companies despite her lack of business experience. The FTC accused the couple of laundering money through Illinois casinos, which was corroborated by security footage obtained by ABC. Kevin's attempts at remediation were deemed inadequate, especially as the courts detailed all the ways he frivolously spent his money. This included dropping hundreds of dollars on haircuts and nearly $2,000 on liquor and cigars, despite previously condemning smoking in his health books. He was held in civil contempt for violating orders to only spend his money on necessities, and his refusal to cooperate with court-appointed receivers only further hurt his case. Though his lawyer tried everything to keep the huckster out of jail, Kevin's constant deceit had by now worn down the judge. He was irked by Kevin crying poor while still driving around in a Bentley and employing 2 personal chefs and a butler at his home in Chicago. Judge Gentleman decided to teach Kevin a lesson by keeping him in jail overnight, warning that more jail time awaited if he didn't fess up to how much money he truly had. Kevin continued obstructing efforts to track his assets, citing a, quote, fairly consistent failure of memory and lack of detail about his money. This was ironic for a man who once dubbed himself Mr. Mega Memory on television. Kevin continued playing the judge for a fool, insisting he was, quote, penniless and homeless. But the federal jury didn't buy it. In November 2013, Kevin was found in criminal contempt of court over his sales of his bogus weight loss guide. Around 24 supporters attended, with some even calling him a political prisoner like Nelson Mandela. In February 2014, the courts moved to auction off many of Mr. Trudeau's personal possessions to pay off his fines. The Chicago Sun-Times reported that a number of luxury furnishings were seized, including, quote, a grand piano, a copy of Catherine the Great's favorite 72 candle chandelier, hundreds of Swarovski crystals, a sauna, a cigar humidor, gilt-framed portraits of General George S. Patton and Winston Churchill, along with multiple copies of his own books. Speaking from his jail cell, a distraught Kevin called these priceless amulets infused with his energy. A month later, the North District of Illinois announced that Kevin was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for violating the 2004 court order that forbid him from making misleading infomercials. Presiding Judge Ronald Guzman explained his reasoning for the sentence in the following statement, quote, since the age of 25, Trudeau has attempted to cheat others for his own personal gain. He added that Kevin had a, quote, history of refusal to follow court orders to tell the public the truth. Speaking about his character, Judge Guzman pointed out the time that Kevin had used his mother's social security number to commit fraud. An 80-year-old supporter of Kevin was removed from the sentencing hearing after twice interrupting by shouting things at the judge from the gallery. Kevin's infomercials continued to air while he was in prison, as other companies had bought the rights prior to his criminal case. Readers of the Chicago Tribune were aghast that he could still promote his scams even behind bars. Kevin had set up a legal defense fund for his fans to donate to, staying in contact through a Facebook page managed by a colleague. A few months into his sentence, Kevin's lawyers filed an appeal. They argued that the federal prosecutors hadn't moved quickly enough under the Speedy Trial Act and that the government hadn't proven he had knowingly violated the court order against misleading infomercials. Kevin gave an interview from prison to Business Insider in 2015. He claimed that in the early 2000s, government agents visited him at night and tried to intimidate him into silence, adding, quote, they've been after me ever since. Kevin had previously mentioned this during an appearance on InfoWars.
I've had people come to my house in the middle of the night.
Kevin told Business Insider that his conviction proved the government had been targeting him for years, suggesting his incarceration was evidence of the conspiracies discussed in his books. He also said that mysterious entities tried to kill him by removing the lug nuts from one of his car's tires. He alleged that members of the Brotherhood once showed him factories producing poisonous food and taught him, quote, secret brainwashing techniques developed by the CIA that are being used in the news media and in advertisements for certain products. He repeated his claims that he had seen alien corpses at Area 51 and said his conscience eventually led him to reveal the Brotherhood's secrets through his books, though he stopped short of naming its members. A former girlfriend of Kevin's was also interviewed by Business Insider, calling him possessive and saying he wouldn't marry her until she reached a particular level in the hierarchy of Scientology. After they got into an argument, Kevin supposedly went on their honeymoon without her, instead taking the young Ukrainian woman who would later become his wife. The girlfriend said he had become especially hostile after they broke up, telling Business Insider, quote, he said he would make life hell for me. It was like, if he couldn't have me, he didn't want me to be happy. He took everything away from me. I had not a dollar left in my bank account. It was reported in 2016 that Kevin's request to overturn his conviction was denied by a federal appeals court, who didn't agree that the government was lacking the evidence needed to put him in jail. He wouldn't leave the system until January 2022. But Kevin had already been making plans to return to the seminar circuit ahead of that, and hoped to have the Global Information Network up and running again in no time. He promised his supporters that he would soon be once again teaching them the secrets to success and how to become the masters of their environment. Unfortunately for Kevin, he once again found himself in legal trouble just months after his release. The feds believed he was still hiding swaths of cash around the world despite not paying back the millions he owed the government. His now ex-wife provided the FTC with documents about his overseas bank accounts, saying that he had hidden 300 pounds in bars of gold at his home in Switzerland. She later told the Chicago Tribune that she was, quote, scared for her life after Kevin tried throwing her under the bus during his legal battles. For his part, Kevin insisted he was still working out how much he owed the government and vowed he wouldn't stiff them. Though he managed to avoid returning to prison, he was found in contempt of court in 2023 for failing to show at a hearing the previous year, shortly after he was released. His old nemesis, Judge Gentleman, had noted that although Kevin had turned over about $1.8 million to the government around that time, most of the money came from donations made by the Kevin Trudeau fan club. As of 2025, Kevin still peddles his beliefs in alternative medicine and the laws of attraction online through his YouTube channel and on Facebook. He continues to host conventions for members of his fan club. The Anomaly of Kevin Trudeau is a textbook case of how fraudsters who peddle in alternative medical cures and get-rich-quick schemes operate. The key to their success is mixing lies with truth so the audience never quite knows what to believe. Indeed, most of the truths Kevin does peddle are either common knowledge or found online for free from other sources. Aiding this is the innate distrust people have of government institutions and other regulatory bodies, which has only grown more prevalent through social media and the internet, where anyone can claim to be an expert on virtually anything. And of course, the fanaticism of Kevin's followers and their disdain of criticism can make others reluctant to speak out. It's as though Kevin's multiple convictions of fraud are actually an asset to his crusade against what he calls a corrupt government trying to hide the truth. Still, one question remains. Even if there is some believability to what Kevin says about corruption at the highest levels, what exactly makes him so qualified to be the arbiter of truth? Especially when he seems to profit off of this just as handsomely as the institutions he criticizes.
I'm not a guy who's made money selling books on how to make money. Okay,
Right.
you watch people on television, go to the store and you buy, there's one book that's out there written by a guy who went bankrupt, then wrote a book on how to get rich. And he made all his money when people bought the book on how to get rich. He wrote it when he was bankrupt. Loving money and using people is bad. Loving money and using people. So yeah, greed is bad in that respect.